make some modifications.
Awesome, awesome. And it looks like there's already somebody in here waiting for you to get started.
Okay. Welcome, welcome. Hello, everybody. Sorry about the technical difficulty. Type in the chat if you can hear me and see me. Okay, but you can hear me. Type in the chat if you can hear me. All right. Well, I am Dr. Theresa Ann Moseley. I am so thankful to be with you today. I have a book, Creating Ambassadors of Peace, 16 Steps to Become an Ambassador of Peace. But I want to tell you the backstory before I get to the book. Bishop T.D. Jakes says, if you don't know your purpose, follow your passion, for your passion will lead you to your purpose. And I am so thankful that today that I am living in my divine purpose. But let me tell you about my big why. You see, I'm a little country girl from Fayetteville, North Carolina. My dad was in the military, and actually I was in the military too. And I came along in a time, I was born in the 50s, raised in the 60s and 70s, when children were seen and not heard. Okay, so I had a lot of thoughts, but I really didn't talk too much. And the first time that I experienced anything to do with violence or death was the assassination of President Kennedy. When he was assassinated, my mother said, the president of the United States was assassinated. That was a big word for a 5-year-old. I said, what does that mean? And she told me that he was shot to death and that he wasn't coming back. And that's when I learned that life isn't forever. I mean, she told me he went to heaven. And that bothered me because at 5 years old, I had empathy and compassion for his family. I said, what about their family? I couldn't imagine living without my dad. So I had compassion and empathy at 5 years old. The next year, I'm going to first grade. And I remember going to school and we had the book, Sally, Sally, See Sally Run. We did phonics, at, cat, rat, sat. And I came home from school one day and I said, is this what life is really all about? I mean, I was 6 years old and wondering what my purpose was. And so one day I was a little bit older then, and I was watching the news, and a commercial for the Army came on, Be All You Can Be. Now, I had a pretty good life. I was the fourth child. I had 4 brothers. My mother and father had 5 children. I went to church every Sunday. I went to prayer meeting every Wednesday. I went to Bible study, and I was a Girl Scout. And when I was 14 years old, we went on a camporee near Fort Bragg. And we didn't have a campfire. We had the lights from the parking lot to light, the camp, right? And this time we had brownies overnighting camping for the first time. And all of a sudden, the lights went out. And someone said, go find Theresa, tell her to sing, because all the little brownies were screaming. And so they found me, and I sang Ben by Michael Jackson. When I got to the last part, you could hear a pin drop. All of the brownies were quiet and they were telling me to sing another one, sing another one. Well, I knew then that my voice was special, but I didn't quite know how I was going to use my voice. Now, getting back to the military, when I graduated from high school, I joined the Army because I wanted to be all I can be. I had a very sheltered life. I never really had to think for myself. Everything was given to me. Really, really great family, but I wasn't very strong or independent. So in the military, I learned how to be loyal. Loyalty was very important. I learned how to be on time. I learned the importance of teamwork, and I was very organized. But when I got out of the military, I didn't have a plan. So I went to Southern California and I was going to go to this travel school, and I got a roommate at the travel school. But when I went back to North Carolina to visit my father, my roommate moved and she took all my stuff. So I had no place to go. So I rode a city bus all day and I ended up at Leisure World in Orange County, California, near Anaheim. And as I was getting off the bus and I had a suitcase, I had my pocketbook, I had $49. And the bus driver said, "Young lady, where are you going?" And I said, "Leisure World." And he said, "Why?" And I looked around and saw all these elderly people with wheelchairs and walkers. And I realized that Leisure World was not an amusement park, that Leisure World was a retirement community for older people. So I kind of got back on the bus, put my head down, and the bus driver drove me to Orange, to the city of Garden Grove in Orange County. And there was Robert Schuller's Crystal Palace Cathedral. There was a restaurant, there were some clubs, and there were some little eating establishments and little stores. And I leaned against a brick wall with my suitcase and my pocketbook and now my $48, because it took me another dollar to get back to Garden Grove. And I said, I prayed to God. I said, "God, I am homeless. If you get me out of this situation, I promise you I'll always be independent. And if I can help anybody out in this situation, I will. God, please tell me what to do. Please give me guidance." Because I know growing up, anytime I prayed about something, my prayers were answered. And when I opened my eyes, there was a club. Now, there was a church and there was a club. I went to the club, okay? When I sat down at the bar, and I didn't drink or smoke, so I ordered a Pepsi. That's a North Carolina thing, by the way. Try to order a Pepsi in Atlanta, Georgia, and see what you get. So I sat there and I ordered the Pepsi, and I was very hungry. So I drank the Pepsi, I chewed the ice, and I started chewing the straw. And then all of a sudden, one tear came down my cheek. And there was somebody there looking at me and said, "Young lady, meet me outside." And I went to the lobby, and the person said, "You're in a crisis, aren't you?" And I said, "Yes." I said, "My father is sick. My roommate moved. I'm homeless. I have no place to go. And I only have $46 to my name because I just spent $2 on a Pepsi." And the person said, "You know what? It's Reaganomics. It's 1981. People are living in tent cities, but I have an apartment across the street, so you can stay with me. Here's my business card. Call your mother, call your father, call somebody and let them know where you are. I'm going to make sure that you're safe." So God did say go to the club. So that was my guardian angel. And I stayed there 3 days and I figured out what I had to do. I re-enlisted. But this time when I re-enlisted, I had a plan. When I got out, I had an apartment already. I was registered for Georgia State University. I didn't have a car, but I could walk to and from home because I lived right downtown Atlanta, and Georgia State was just a walk away. So 4 years later, I graduated with my first degree, Bachelor of Arts. My father, who was still very sick, came to the graduation, and he couldn't actually make the ceremony, but he stayed at my apartment until I got back. And I handed him my diploma. And my father said, "I had 5 children, 4 boys and 1 girl. You're the only one that went to college, and you graduated. I am so proud of you. I want you to take this diploma. It's worth $1 million, and go live in your purpose." Now, my dad had an 8th grade education, but he had the wisdom of a sage. My father was a very smart man, and I'll always remember that he told me to go live in my purpose. Now, stay with me now, because these are the events that led up to me living in my purpose. 6 months later, my father died of lung cancer. My whole life changed. It was a big pivot for me. This is the flag for my father, and my father is over here with my mom. I could not eat. I could not sleep. I could not drink. I could not work. I didn't even bathe. I laid on the floor in the fetal position for 2 weeks, just crying. No one could comfort me but God. One day, I was laying on that floor crying, and something inside of me said, "Theresa, get up. I'm still with you. Go live in your purpose." And I didn't know whether that was the voice of my dad or the voice of God, but I got up, I bathed, I got something to eat, I went back to work, I went back to college, I got a master's degree, a doctorate, I worked in education for 26 years, I'm an award-winning educator, got many awards in education, and I was very successful, but I wasn't fulfilled. So I got a job as a high school principal, and I had to meet all of my students. And so there was one guy that I didn't meet yet. And I said, I got to find this kid because he was on my mind. I listened to my heart. One of my gifts is intuition. And someone had said, well, he's on the hallway today. You know, you can get him today because he's in the hall taking 2 lunches. I said, okay. So I walked around the hall, and there he was standing, 6'2", 220, leaned up against the wall. And I said, well, hello there. And he said, hi. He just knew he was in trouble, but he wasn't. I said, tell me something. What's your passion? And he said, I play football. And when he said he played football, his face lit up like a Christmas tree. I said, are you good? He said, yes, ma'am. I said, listen, that same work ethic you put in playing football, learning the plays, strength and conditioning, learning the playbook, you got to put that same work ethic in your academics. What do you want to do with that? He goes, well, I want to go to college and I want to play in the NFL. I said, well, you can do that, son, but we got to get you out of high school first, right? And so he says, do you know football? I said, I do. He said, what's an H-back? I said, okay, he's a man in motion. He fakes out the D. He's on the offense, as you can see. He's a big tight end. He blocks too. He's a man in motion. He's on the move. Now that's an H-back. And he said, oh my God, you do know football. So we laughed and talked for about 15 minutes. And this is where my big why begins. 2 weeks later, I get a phone call that my student was murdered. He was shot to death. His life mattered. President Barack Obama said every life must be given its full potential, that every life matters. This young man could have played pro ball. He could have played in college. He came from a wonderful family, but he can't live out his dash. I thank God that I found him and talked to him for 15 minutes because his mother asked me to speak at his funeral. And I told him, I didn't know your son, but I knew his passion, I knew his gift, and I knew what his purpose was. And I'll be happy to speak at his funeral. And I had a lot to say. That's very painful. How many of you has lost someone? Type it in the chat, to violence. I know we see violence every day on television, but when it hits home, it's very painful. The very next year, I lost another student. And this time, he was beat to death. A student told me, Dr. Moseley, guns don't kill people. It's people that kill people. My point taken, my kid was beat to death. This student was beat to death in a park. And on my way home from school, I saw the yellow tape. I said, what's happening over there? Only to find out when I got home that it was my student. And he was a brilliant artist, a Picasso in the making. His life mattered. He was 18 years old and could not live out his divine assignment. And then I started the campaign for no more violence, one school, one community, one county at a time. And the next year, one city, one state, one nation at a time. And then I'm watching the news one day, midday, and I see a familiar street. It said 2 people murdered on the street. I said, I have cousins that live on that street. And the next picture was a picture of my cousin and her son. My cousin had Bible study in her house every Wednesday. She was a good woman. And her life was cut short due to gun violence. I said, God, please tell me, what am I to do? How can I help? What can I do? God said, Theresa, speak and write your message on peace. I've written 6 books. I'll have 8 by the end of the year. That the majority of my books are on peace and nonviolence. 16 steps to creating ambassadors of peace is ways that everybody can make a difference in the world by becoming an ambassador of peace. Once again, I'm at work and I'm still successful but not fulfilled. And I went to a master's class. And in that class, I learned something. The instructor said there's 2 days that are very important in your life. The day you were born and the day you find out why. Hallelujah. Then that class, I learned My gift was my voice and intuition. My passion was serving others. I was in the right field in education because that's all you do is serve others. And my purpose is to make the world a more peaceful place. That is my divine assignment. And when I leave this earth, I will be proud to know that I fulfilled my assignment. Because if I can just change the life of one person by having them read the book or hear my speech on what they can do to make a difference, then my job is done. So let's talk about this for a minute. Dr. Martin Luther King said that peace cannot be attained through violence. It can only be attained through understanding. So one of the first steps in this book is communicate, don't retaliate. How many people can actually communicate to somebody before they retaliate, especially young kids? They just don't have those skills. They're just ready to attack someone. And the way social media puts things out, and a lot of it's not true, kids in school are attacking each other over something that's not even true. I remember, and I'm the person that will get involved. Yes, some adults too. I was driving actually down the street, and I saw two kids, high school kids, fighting each other in the middle of the street. And I watched all these cars. Nobody is stopping these two black boys from fighting. I got out of my car in my 6-inch heels, and I said, okay, y'all, put the cameras away. Y'all go home, and you two boys come here. Now, why are you fighting? They didn't know who I was. I could have been anybody, but I just let them know I'm an administrator, okay? You need to let me know what's going on. And the boy said, well, I didn't like the way he looked at me today during lunch. I said, well, how did he look at you? He said, like he wanted to fight me. I said, did you look at him like you wanted to fight him? He said, no, ma'am, but I ain't no punk. So I told him to meet me after school. I said, and that's why you're fighting? Do you know how crazy that is? Look at each other. You have the same eyes. You have the same nose. You have the same hair. You are brothers. You are better than this. You need to learn how to communicate before you start retaliating. Okay? Get your mama on the phone. Daddies are okay, but the mothers will take care of business. Get your mama on the phone. And they came and picked up these boys, and I told them I broke up this fight. It was stupid. No reason. You have to communicate. Don't retaliate. And in this book, when I write a story for every step, correct? And then I follow it with a quote. And this one is mine. It's important to understand that words are very powerful. You can hurt someone and heal someone with words. Do the latter for the sake of peace. So when you get this book, you have time to reflect on what does this quote mean to you? This is going to be so great for teenagers and young adults. And then a journal entry. What will you do differently to communicate rather than retaliate? Very important. So each chapter has a story, a quote, and a section for you to journal. We talk about another step. Have empathy and compassion for others. And this, Miss Helen, is adults really need this too. Okay? Compassion is an emotion. It's an emotion that if you don't like, or if you don't care about human life, it's hard for you to have compassion for somebody. Okay? So you have to value human life in order to have compassion. Empathy is being able to feel what someone else is feeling. Okay? That's hard to do if you don't respect people or fear people that don't look like you. Did you hear what I just said? If you don't respect people or fear people that don't look like you, you can't have empathy for them. And guess what? Empathy and compassion are learned before age 5. Remember when I started this, I said I cried for the president and his children in 1963. I was 5 years old. I was taught to have feelings. I was taught to love. See, Erik Erikson, a developmental psychologist, says there's 4 virtues that all kids need before age 5. The virtue of hope, the virtue of will, the virtue of competence, and purpose. Because without hope, there is no trust. Without trust, there is no love. And you have people in this world that you work with, that you go to church with, that you go to school with, that don't trust people, and they struggle in relationships with productivity, with following through, because that virtue is missing. Will, if you don't have will, you don't have any faith that you can do anything. We have kids sitting in sixth grade classroom, 12th grade classroom. I can't do this. It's because they never learned the virtue of will. And if you don't know what your purpose is, you will wreak havoc in this world trying to figure it out. You know, I read a book called Children Without a Conscience, and 99% of all serial killers are unattached children, and they don't have those four virtues. So it's very important for this step is that we teach our children to be compassionate, to have empathy, to respect people that don't look like them. And we have to raise our children to be peaceful beings. Because guess what? They might grow up to be a teacher, teaching your cousins. They might grow up to be a police officer. They might grow up to be president of the United States. So it's very important that we understand it's our responsibility to raise our children to be peaceful beings. Children don't come out the womb shooting and fighting. They are learned behaviors. And guess what? If they're learned behaviors, they can be unlearned. And this book is one of the steps that's going to help people do better. Another step is realize your full potential and make a difference in the world. So once I figured out what my divine purpose was, not only was I successful, I was fulfilled, I was prosperous, and I had inner peace. So just imagine if everybody in the world lived within their divine purpose, they would be successful, they would be fulfilled, they would prosper and grow, and they would have inner peace. And then there would be no need for violence. I'm on to something here. Let's talk about another step. And this is a big one. Step 13, attack the problem, not the person. Oh my goodness, I have a story to tell you. 1965, I was going to third grade. And once again, I told you I was the only girl. I had four brothers, so I went with my mother everywhere. And she went to register us at Haymount Elementary School in Fayetteville, North Carolina. When we walked into the school building, the secretary says, "Oh, I'm so sorry, Miss Moseley. We can't register your kids because they're colored." I went, "Oh, no, she didn't just tell my mother that she can't register her kids. Like, this lady is in trouble." I was afraid for her, right? And my mother says, "Come on, Risa." And she told the lady, "I'll be back." And that was before Arnold Schwarzenegger. She said, "I'll be back." And my mother grabbed my hand and took me to the superintendent's office, and she said, "Listen, my husband fought in World War II and the Korean War. We pay property tax at 1107 Chesterfield Drive. Haymount Elementary School is our neighborhood school. My kids are not going to walk 5 miles to number 10 across town anymore. You better call that secretary and tell her to register my kids tomorrow. And if you don't, I'm going to call the president of the United States." The superintendent got on the phone. "Hello, Miss Susie. You need to go ahead and register the Moseley kids there tomorrow. And listen now, don't you give Miss Moseley no hard time now. That's their property address. Yes, that's their school." And we were registered at Haymount Elementary School. In fact, our neighborhood actually had us targeted to go to predominantly white schools, so we didn't have to be bused into white schools because our neighborhood schools were white schools. And that's where we went to elementary, middle, and high school. And thank God I was raised to love everybody. Because in the 60s, we were saying it loud, "I'm black and I'm proud." Okay? In the 60s, it was cool to have a black friend if you were a white person. In fact, went to predominantly white schools, and all the homecoming queens were black girls. It was a sign of the times. But we loved one another. So the campaign for no more violence, one school, one community, one county at a time, was birthed because I lost students. 16 Steps to Creating Ambassadors of Peace was birthed because God said, Theresa, speak and write your message on peace. At the end of this book, I have a creed. And the creed is something that kids can say every day. You can give it to somebody that needs to be peaceful. But here's what it says: I will cultivate peace by caring, communicate rather than retaliate, actively listen, then speak, think before I react, respect one another, show compassion for others, have empathy for others, realize my full potential and make a difference in the world, forgive those that wronged me, spend time with people who celebrate me. I will teach my family to be peaceful, encourage my friends to be kind and nonviolent, attack the problem, not the person, love my community and serve them well, protest peacefully for justice, find my gift, know my passion, and live in my purpose. I am an ambassador of peace. When the power of love overcomes the love of power, then the world will know peace. And that came from Jimi Hendrix. I am Dr. Theresa Ann Moseley. I am an ambassador of peace. You can contact me on my website. It's all small letters. www. No, creatingambassadorsofpeace.com. Creatingambassadorsofpeace.com. On my website, there's a space where you can schedule an appointment to meet with me if you'd like for me to speak to your organization. There's also a bookstore that has all of my 6 publications, including my Amazon bestseller, 16 Steps to Creating Ambassadors of Peace. And there's also an apparel store where you can get sweatshirts that say Creating Ambassadors of Peace. And today I have a special offer for you. If you get one of the sweatshirts out of my store, I will send you a free copy of Creating Ambassadors of Peace. Now, I know it's summer, so I also have t-shirts too. So if you purchase any merchandise from my apparel store, you will receive a free copy of creatingambassadorsofpeace.com. I want to leave you with this. Life is but a short road to our ultimate destiny. Make peace, have compassion, and learn to love before you get there. Peace and blessings to you all. Now, if you have any questions, you can type them in the chat. We are right on time. Anybody have any questions that I can answer for you? I'll be on about 3 more minutes and then I'll let you leave. Okay, everyone. Peace and blessings to you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Miss Green. What I've learned is all the lessons that I've had in life, all of my life experiences prepared me to be the person that I am, prepared me to live in my divine assignment. And I know that when I start speaking internationally and globally, that I'm going to make a difference in the world. So thank you. Thank you. I'm so glad that you liked the stories. You're right, Miss Helen. Some adults also need this book. They need to have the skills. But guess what? They're broken because they don't have those virtues of hope, will, purpose, and competence. They got it honestly. And a lot of times, teachers can identify who these children are before they grow up. Because if they don't have those virtues, there's things that we can put in place as young adults to help them be a better person. And I think that's the piece that's missing in schools. And that's something that I'm going to work on in the future, especially when I retire, making sure that everybody has the resources, free resources that they need to build healthy beings. I think that's so important. Yes, yes. Broken people, they can harm the world. They really can. I had a heart healer that told me because I was, I said, "Am I doing the right thing?" And she told me that I have angels all around me, and you're going to make a difference in corporate America. You're going to make a difference in the world. You are doing what you're supposed to do. This is your divine assignment. So spread the word. Life is but a short road to our ultimate destiny. We all have to make peace. We all have to have compassion. And we all have to learn to love before we get there. Thank you so much.